I wrote a little booklet called Minutes to Midnight. I've changed it now to Seconds to Midnight. Brothers and sisters, we are in the last seconds of time. And therefore, if we're in the last seconds of time, then what Satan has to do with this church, he has to do quickly. You see, the greatest evidence of where we are prophetically is what's going on in God's church. Not what's going on in the world out there, it's what's going on in God's church. That's the greatest evidence of where we are prophetically. You see, brothers and sisters, it will do Satan no good to pass a Sunday law if God's people are firm on the truth. He first has to weaken us so that when he passes Sunday law, we will give up and keep it. You see, brothers and sisters, when the children of Israel was on the banks of the Jordan and Balaam was trying to curse them, he couldn't curse them. Why? Because, brothers and sisters, they were obedient. So the first thing he had to do was get them to disobey God. Then he could curse them. Was he successful? All right, he was successful in getting them. What did he use, brothers and sisters? He used 7 things. Music was one of them. Later on this week, we will get into these 7 things. But he used 7 things to bring about the downfall of Israel on the banks of the Jordan. And the spirit of prophecy says that the very same thing that Satan did on the banks of the Jordan to prevent God's people from going into the earthly Canaan land, he would do now to prevent us from going into the heavenly Canaan land. Are you with me, saints? Now, you just follow me now. Now, we study. We're at study here this week, saints. So, in this scenario here, after Peter has preached and said that this is what took place, that he quoted Joel and said this represents the prophecy of Joel. After he goes on and explains to them all that's going on, verses 37, let's read verse 37. Now, when they heard this, we're in chapter 2, verse 37. The Bible says, Acts chapter 2, verses 37. It says, now when they heard this, they were pricked in their heart and said unto Peter and to the rest of the apostles, men and brethren, what shall we do? Now what Peter has just done, Peter has gone through a brief history and he has shown these devout men that they were instrumental in killing the Messiah. Are you with me, saints? These are devout men. That means these are men that paid an honest tithe and offering. Is it possible for a man that's paying an honest tithe and offering to kill Jesus? Are you with me, brothers and sisters?